think about yourself as a consumer. Everyone is a consumer, including the merchants, right? So you need to think about me as a consumer and take your own personal kind of desires out of it. Just think very kind of high level as a consumer. What are those expectations so that you can kind of utilize that for what you want to do in your store?
Welcome to the Marketing Automation Hustle Podcast, where we break down the essential strategies of email marketing and automation to help e-commerce brands hyper-personalize their customer journey and increase sales on autopilot. So get ready to automate your marketing like a pro with Sendlane's brand marketing manager and your host, Caitlin Hutchinson.
Welcome back to another episode of the Marketing Automation Hustle podcast, listeners. There's a lot of podcasts out there that you could be listening to. So thank you for listening to ours or watching if you're watching us on YouTube. I want to be sure to remind you guys before we jump into the episode about our brand new course that we just launched called eCommerce Email Academy. It is the ultimate step-by-step email marketing course for e-commerce marketers. And we've put together 57 video lessons, 10 course modules, plus a full stack bonus module that has expert interviews, case studies, checklists. It's just awesome. You can enroll in the course and get an overview of everything that's in it at ecomemailacademy.com/podcast. That's ecomemailacademy.com/podcast. Now, as an e-commerce marketer, you have access to an endless list of technologies that enable you to transform the customer experience and the whole shopping journey. The problem is that having so many options to power up your store can make the task of choosing the best tech stack for your e-commerce store kind of an overwhelming process. So whether you're reevaluating your e-com tech stack or you're just building it for the very first time. Either way, today's episode is all about helping you cover all your bases and help you choose that tech stack. So we'll be talking about all the different tools you should have in your e-com arsenal, best-in-class tools from each category, and how to make informed decisions. So everything that goes into that. And for this full episode, I've brought Amir here with me.
Hello.
Hey, Amir. He is our strategic partner manager, correct?
Strategic, yes.
That is your title.
That is my title. The strategy part makes it sound really great.
Yes, the strategic. We threw that in there. Big vocabulary.
Right.
So yeah, Amir works here at Sendlane.
I do.
He's awesome. He has so much knowledge. He is the one that's kind of in the thick of all our different partner processes and integrations. And you really have an awesome understanding of just creating relationships with other platforms that we're integrated with here at Sendlane. Yeah. But also he's on the sales side as well. Yeah. So he really understands, if you're an e-commerce brand, you really get what people are looking for or how to find out what they're looking for.
Totally.
So Amir really is the expert on this topic.
Thank you.
We didn't just, pluck him out and throw you into this topic. So Amir, tell me a little bit define kind of a tech stack for people who maybe don't understand that terminology.
Yeah. So when you get started and you have your e-commerce business and you pick a platform, so let's say you pick like a Shopify, right?
Yeah.
Now that's where you're going to do your selling, but selling is just the beginning of it. There are going to be other things either from the fulfillment end or how you're interacting with your customers or how you're managing your customers or how you're dealing with issues from your customers. All of those fall into a particular piece of technology that handles it. Now, most of these platforms do have some decent kind of like baseline features that they give you, but ultimately it's just not enough. And you're going to need to go out and find other tools to be able to kind of address whatever those things are. Yeah. And especially as you scale, that's where it becomes really important.
Totally. And I think, we were talking about this before, just there are a lot of tools out there that want to be the all-in-one solution or claim to be the all-in-one solution. Yeah. And there are a lot of tools out there that do, multiple things well, but I think it creates that problem of, jack of all trades, master of none.
Totally.
And what you really want is someone that can master that task that you need done in every category, right?
Totally. Yeah.
So that's kind of the whole premise of the idea of, and it sucks to have all these different tools, but not if they're the right tools that all communicate, right?
Right. Totally. So there is a tendency, especially with newer stores and even stores that are much bigger that don't understand the issue that they're trying to resolve. They will want to kind of gravitate towards, wait a second, I want SMS and I want, transactional emails baked in with my marketing emails. And there are very specific reasons that those systems aren't necessarily tied together. And
Yeah.
when they are tied together, you have to think, if I'm working on a system that claims to be an all-in-one, there might be something they do well
Mm-hmm.
and they throw in this other piece just to cover their bases. They haven't really fleshed it out. So it becomes this kind of thing where you, the consumer of these products, has to really dive deep and understand, what is it that I'm getting out of it. So
Yeah, totally. So at what point are you seeing people reach out and look for a new tool if you're a new business per se?
yeah, so usually it comes on the back of some problem, right?
Yeah,
So
totally.
for example, with returns. So, you know, I'm in a Shopify group, and recently someone posted, "Hey, I need to do a better job of handling my returns. Does anyone have a recommendation?" A lot of times you'll see that this is the kind of interaction that happens where merchants will go and look for a solution because something went wrong in their business.
Yeah.
But the problem is that they have to understand kind of holistically what is that problem and what's out there.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge for Sendlane, and that's a challenge for really any SaaS company in this space, is to make sure that the user understands what is it that they provide. I can simply kind of say, "Hey, you need email marketing," but it's deeper than that. It's like,
Yeah, totally.
how do I understand what kind of email marketing you want to do so that I can provide the best fit for you?
Totally.
And that's ultimately on the sales side that you had mentioned. When we go and we're looking at customers, our number one focus is finding customers that fit our platform and we solve problems for them.
Yeah, because the last thing you want to do is bring somebody on, a new client, where it's like, great, you got a sale, but they're not going to stick with you because it doesn't fit what they needed. Like, that is
100%.
not the overall goal with a really good sales team,
Right.
and I myself have sat on some demos for other platforms that we use here at Sendlane to make my job easier.
Yeah.
And I definitely notice the difference between the platforms that really want to know what my needs are and the ones that just want to make a sale.
Right.
So I feel like there's definitely a difference there. And remember that big, I don't know what you call it, like the big map of all the different technologies
Mhm.
that we were looking at
Yeah.
that one time? It's pretty nuts.
It's
All
crazy.
the different platforms that exist. So I can only imagine, as an e-commerce store owner, marketer, whatever, just how overwhelming that is.
Totally. So speaking of that map, so we had this map and it was showing that there are like 1,500 different email marketing platforms for SaaS, for e-commerce businesses.
Yeah.
Right. Here's what's interesting about that. Yes, there are 1,500 email marketing platforms. However, there are a handful of email marketing platforms that do what Sendlane does.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
So when we talk about who do we compete with, we're not talking about the entire 1,500. We're talking about a very small segment of that, because if you are focusing on the right kind of client and you gear your outreach and how you go about building your business, you are going after that group of people, not the
Totally.
entire 1,500. So, as a merchant, the first thing to keep in mind is, when I'm looking for a new tool to do something, all SaaS platforms, all of them, address a specific segment of your business.
Yeah.
So for example, if you are a just getting started, SMB, and you are jumping into email, but you're high growth, right? So you let's say you got 20,000 people on your list, and you need to have some sophisticated tools. That's a great fit for Sendlane, right? Because you're going to get certain benefits from a platform perspective, but also from a human perspective by choosing us. Now, let's
Totally.
say you are a Fortune 500, multinational, right? And you need email. You're not going to necessarily look at us or our competitors, because there are certain things that you need and certain pieces of your business that are going to tie into different places, and that's where you're going to go.
Totally.
So ultimately, it's all about finding the right fit for your business, and also being open to the fact that most SaaS companies are not interested in bringing you on board to watch you walk out the door
Yeah,
next
totally.
month.
Yeah. There's a reason that the, whole sales process or demo process that you go through is, they're really vetting you.
Yeah.
I mean,
Totally.
I think it can get frustrating sometimes. You're like, just show me what the heck this freaking platform does.
Right.
But really, it's like they are trying to figure out if you're a good fit,
Right.
And I think some people don't realize that.
Yeah.
So that's a great example.
Yeah,
With Sendlane, we're not for everyone.
No.
That is not the point. Just like as an e-commerce brand, depending on your product might not be for everyone.
Right.
You're targeting a specific, maybe you're in a specific niche
Yeah.
or, it's only a certain demographic. It works a very similar way with SaaS tools.
100%. So when we bring a client on and we're trying to figure out their business, we're not trying to figure out the best way to sell them. We're trying to figure out the best way to service them, because if we can service them the correct way, then they will be a client 6 months down the line, 10 months down the line, 24 months down the line. And that's what we're ultimately interested in. And to be frank, that's what every SaaS platform is ultimately interested in.
Yeah, totally.
Because having a customer come on board for 2 months is useless to us, right?
Yeah.
So keeping that in mind, hey, I'm a new business. I've got this great e-commerce platform, rather store, and now I'm getting inundated by these calls. The first thing I would do is say, okay, what is it ultimately that I want?
I was
You know?
just going to say that.
You know?
Because you were saying, it's all about the fit. But first, you need to figure out what is going to make the fit happen.
Right.
What do you need? So I was thinking, for like Sendlane, for example, something that we, really push is our killer customer service,
Right.
and our account management team.
Right.
And we've had people switch from other platforms that have just been disappointed with customer support. So maybe that's just one reason to switch over. But I think it's really interesting that you can have two platforms that do a lot of similar things, but one excels a little more in one area than the other. And that's what's most important to that particular brand.
Totally.
So you have a lot of people switch, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah, we
most
do.
of your conversations is people looking to not necessarily start fresh,
Right.
but to make a switch.
Yes.
And what's kind of causing that generally? I'm curious.
Yeah, so it's because of, hey, I need deeper functionality. I want to be able to do, lifetime value. I want to focus on LTV, right? So if a brand comes and says, hey, I have this user base and I want to extract more value out of each customer, that's where our platform is going to fit.
Mm-hmm.
So, or I've put in a support ticket and it's been a week since I got a response. That's where people kind of come to us. Really, it becomes a matter of a pain point that we're trying to solve at that point when it comes to say, how do you actually acquire that customer versus, what is it that the customer didn't get out of the other platform? They might have actually been decently happy on the other platform for certain things, right?
Yeah.
And then they drop the ball when it comes to, support or account management. We tend to win there. Where I think is an interesting kind of way to look at it too is, users that come to us, sometimes they don't really understand what email marketing is versus just emailing, right? So
Yeah. The automation aspect of
the
email
automation
marketing.
aspect, and also really the ultimately emails that users want. So this is
Yeah,
actually
the
a very
personalization.
totally. It's actually a very common conversation that we end up having where someone will say, hey, I'll need to be able to also do some password resets with you guys. Okay. I use SendGrid and I don't want to use them. I just want to use you. And we always have to have this conversation. It's like, hey, there are multiple different kinds of emails, right?
Yeah.
There's a transactional email. There's a sales email. There's a marketing email. So you need to be able to understand as a business the difference between what those are. So for example, the reason that we can inbox so well is because we are purely a marketing email platform. So what does that mean? That means that we need the user to tell us that they want those emails. If we get that opt-in, if we get the user's buy-in, that's when we can start actually driving results behind email marketing.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Very common. And you would be surprised the size of businesses that just aren't aware, whether it be the SMB or very large 50-year-old, national brand that's been emailing for years, right?
Yeah.
But they're
They're
still
not really up with the times
they're
necessarily.
not. Yeah. They think of email as the same thing that they've been doing for the last 20 years, when ultimately the laws have changed and the expectations have changed. The expectations have changed from from the inbox's point of view, from Gmail's point of view, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the expectations have also changed for your customers. So if you are sending emails to users who don't want it, you're not going to get results.
Yeah.
That's really ultimately the conversation that we have to have on a regular basis when people come into it, whether they be fresh or not fresh, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of clarifying that we have to do.
And I love what you're saying, because it's really a lot of education
Yeah,
going
totally.
on. And we're just using Sendlane and our platform as an example, but this really applies to anything that you're looking at. This is just obviously what we do every day
Right.
and what Amir experiences on a daily basis. But I think it is really true. You have big companies come on, and there's that need to educate them on what the tool really does. So I think a good pro tip for an e-commerce marketer that's listening is, seek to really understand and be educated
Right.
about that solution that
Right.
you're looking into. Because I think a lot of times we make assumptions about what things do or don't do,
Right.
kind of thing. And like you're saying, you're really showing people, okay, but you actually need more. So in addition to showing them what email marketing automation does,
Mhm.
you're also giving them an education about how they can use it for their business.
Right. Where and if we don't have that conversation, the expectations aren't there.
Yeah.
We've actually had situations where a customer will come in, we onboarded them, we go through the process of doing whatever we need to do, and then come later to find out that they had a different expectation
Mhm.
where, oh, I thought you guys were going to set up transactional for us, and we might say, hey, we can do a certain part of what you need, but ultimately, in order to do true transactional emails, you need a system like SendGrid,
Yeah.
because we can't service those specific needs. And even from a platform perspective, we would be harming our own reputation, our sender reputation, and kind of our business process to be able to do those things.
Yeah.
So expectations are super important. And we tell our salespeople and generally, set the right expectations so that you can qualify the right user.
Totally. And I also want to bring up, the whole integrations
Yeah.
side of that. I'm sure that comes up. You want to know what other platforms people are using
Right.
and make sure that Sendlane integrates with those. And you were mentioning that the other day, just about people understanding there's not necessarily a perfect scenario out there.
Yeah.
So can you explain that a little bit, what you were saying the other day to me?
Totally. So if you imagine building software is difficult, right? And building software that does everything is pretty much not going to be there. So managing your expectations begins with understanding what the landscape actually looks like, right?
Yeah.
So if I want to do, for example, I want to do reviews, right? I want to be able to have a site that pulls in all these reviews, but I also want to be able to do a reward system behind that.
Yeah.
You might not find the perfect fit, especially for your budget, if you want it to do everything. But if you can say, hey, which systems talk to each other and transfer the information that's most important to me, that's going to let you kind of have a reality check with what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times merchants want to kind of find the easiest path towards solving those business problems. And ultimately, there is no easy path.
Yeah.
Systems are disparate. They're not connected.
Yeah.
And what we do here at Sendlane is we go and say, okay, what are the tools that are most likely going to be implemented within a business? And we try to go and partner with them. So for example, with Smile.io, we went and said, okay, a very popular rewards program, especially popular with the high velocity SMBs and mid-market brands, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which fit our business. So we went and made a partnership with them and we built an integration there. Is it the only rewards program? No, there's Loyalty Lion, there's Swell, there are a lot of other options,
Yeah.
but we can't possibly integrate with every single one. Now, there are some interesting kind of integration pieces I want to talk about a little later, like Zapier. But before we go there, just to be aware, we're not going to be able to solve every single problem for you. And we're not going to be able to integrate with every single platform that you're
Totally.
looking. And even if you go up market and you look at some of the other platforms, they're not integrating everywhere,
Yeah.
right? They're going to find the systems that best fit their client base.
Yeah. And I think if you are a merchant and there is a specific platform that is the lifeblood of your business, if you will,
Yeah.
you can't settle it. You have to have things that integrate with that platform.
Yeah.
Super simple example, Shopify. If you have a Shopify store, you have to have all these marketing tools that
Talk to it.
talk to Shopify.
Yeah. Totally.
Anybody that doesn't, it's not an option.
Right.
So I think that's a huge piece of it as well, is out of, all the tools you use, which is the most important. This, obviously, if it's your Shopify store,
Right.
that's your store.
Yeah.
So
You start there. That's a good place to start, saying, hey, I'm going to go into the Shopify ecosystem and I'm going to look for tools that best service me.
yeah, totally.
But further from there, you need to kind of know what your ultimate goal is. It's not just saying, hey, this integrates with Shopify, this is good enough for me.
yeah.
It's saying, what do I want
Does
my
it solve your
customer
problems?
Right. What is it doing for my customer experience? So, a good place to kind of think about this, and I want to, and we were talking before we actually started about Zappos, right?
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
So it's actually a good place to kind of intro there. So Zappos has this 365-day return policy, right?
Yeah.
And it actually is a revenue driver for them. Now, they probably have a relationship with a 3PL that enables this for them.
Mhm.
And they do it obviously at a large scale. But they said to themselves, hey, what is the number one thing about buying shoes? I go into a store and I might try on 6 pairs of shoes and I might walk around in that pair of shoes. And then I say to myself, this is perfect. This is the one I want. Then I buy that one.
Yeah.
Right?
hmm
So if you actually look at the reasons people return, it's usually the top reasons is it's too small or it's too big.
Yeah.
Right. So that's generally the top reasons for returns. And especially in that world of clothing and apparel. So they said, okay, if that's true, that people need the flexibility to try something and then decide that they want it. That's why they did 365-day return policy, which is insane.
That's really
But
insane.
here's the thing.
I didn't even know that was a
Yeah,
thing.
365, the entire year you have to decide whether or not you want to return something to Zappos.
Wow.
Now, that's a revenue driver for them. That actually helps them make money because they understand the user experience first, which is I want to buy shoes. If I'm buying shoes, I want to try them on and walk around in my apartment. And if they don't feel good, I want to return them.
Yeah.
That is the user expectation. So they've matched their process to that user expectation. And now it's become a revenue driver. for
Love
them.
that.
So
That's a great point.
you have to think about those things, right? How can I best service my customer base with these tools
Yeah.
to address my business?
It's more than just, getting it to run smoothly.
Right.
What pieces are most important?
Right.
Yeah.
And then even within, email or messaging. So
Yeah.
let's talk about messaging for a minute. If you are, let's say you are selling some outdoor equipment. Let's say you're selling like sports equipment,
Mhm.
right? You might want to integrate some kind of text messaging service into your kind of messaging system. So let's say
Uh-huh.
you do regular emails and you're sending out those regular emails all week. But on Friday or Saturday, when people are engaging in sports, maybe you want to send an SMS. You want to send a bulk SMS. So you need to know where to go to do that. You might come and say, hey, I use Sendlane. They have SMS. Correct. But we don't do bulk SMS. We don't do two-way SMS. So
Gotcha.
you need to find a system like Retention Rocket to be able to address that. Again, that goes back to what does my business look like versus, what number of tools can I launch at this to best get the results that I need? That's never going to work. You
Yeah.
have to kind of understand those users' behavior so then you can choose the right platform to address those users.
Totally. And I want to go back to what you started to kind of mention about Zapier.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the way that we can integrate with anything,
Right.
whether there's a native integration available or not.
Right. So what Zapier basically does is it's this, so it allows two disparate systems to talk to each other.
Yeah.
And it handles all of the work in the middle. Now, most users will say, okay, well, that's another expense on top of it. Here's the fact of the matter. Again, to go back to this, the systems today, especially, are separate. The best systems are not going to have everything baked in.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to kind of approach it like, that's the expectation. If I want to get the best system to solve email, I'm not going to do it if I go to something that has email, SMS, transactional, everything built into one. You have to find that one targeted system to do it. Zapier will allow you to say, okay, I have all these disparate systems, but I need them to communicate so that I can get better results.
Yeah.
That's where Zapier kind of comes in. You can actually deploy marketing emails and never have that system talk to another. All you really need it to do ultimately is talk to Shopify, for example.
Yeah, totally.
But if you were to kind of try to get more sophisticated with it, so for example, we can now tie into smile.io. So what does that mean? If you have users that are gaining points from interacting with your store, we can drive them back to the store by sending them messages based on the number of points that they have. Like I've bought $1,000 from you. Now I have 500 points, right? So that ties a value to that user. And then you can encourage them to spend those points, for example, by hitting them with the right message at the right time.
Totally.
So you want to find those systems that are integrated together that make sense for your business. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. And I think as a merchant, education, you kind of to go back to this, education is super important, and being willing to have an open mind to hear what people are saying is also very important. There's a tendency to kind of like feel that, and this is true with, I think, all sales, like to be totally frank, right? You are a merchant, you're getting hit with 8 to 10 calls every day, people wanting to sell you, hey, SEO, here's some SEO. We have an SEO service, we have an SEM service, we have an email marketing service, we have a text messaging service, right? I think that all merchants should be cautious but open to hear what is out there. And then go out there and seek out information, because at the end of the day, in order to really push you to go from $1 million in sales to $10 million in sales, you're not going to do that purely off of the same processes that you started with.
Yeah, totally.
You have to go to that next level.
And I think it's really good too to, even if your business isn't quite ready for something, it's good to know what is available, because maybe you will be ready for that in another 6 months or a year.
Right.
So it's good to just have that education of what tools, what features, everything that's available to you.
Totally.
And there's a lot of different, there's a lot of different tools, but I also wanted to ask you, what are the important categories of tools that if I'm a e-commerce brand that I should be looking at, that I'm going to need in order to have a smooth running store?
Yeah. So just at a high level, messaging, rewards, reviews, returns, and shipping. And shipping and returns can actually be combined. So like a company like ShipBob, which is a 3PL that can do obviously logistics, but also does reverse logistics. They essentially can handle everything from, 2-day shipping to processing a return label, to actually taking a return to a fulfillment center. So you need to really think about, how am I scaling and what is going to fit that scale the best.
Yeah.
You might not need, you could do, for example, you might be able to just do loop returns. Maybe you're doing your own warehouse and you're handling your own process, but you need to be able to do the return labeling, right?
Yeah.
So you can use a system like loop returns. Again, it really comes down to understanding your business at scale and where you need to go look for those systems, right?
Totally.
Same thing with reviews. If your site, if your product is super deep into a particular community, right? So let's say you sell like dirt bikes, right? Dirt bikes is a little subculture in and of itself, right?
Yeah, totally.
So the more you can get your customer to give you information or give you some kind of like backing, you can leverage that, you want to get a a review system in place, like shopper approved, right? So that you can start collecting reviews, not just about products, but actually reviews about your site itself. What's interesting about reviews is once you collect reviews about your site, you can then actually push those reviews to Google and Yahoo and Bing, so that within the search results, so in your natural search results, you will be able to see a 5-star.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So anytime you see that, if you go and you search a product, and I actually encourage any e-commerce business, go look what your competitors are doing in those results. If they have reviews that are in their Google results, That's because they have syndicated reviews from some system like Shopper Approved.
Yeah.
That's how you do that. So you can feed that information back. And all of these things tie together to result in conversions.
Yeah.
Right. So it is an investment, but especially if again, think about your user base. If your user base is in some little subculture, reviews are a perfect place to pop off. Right. But if it's like, I'm generally selling one-offs and it's like like a plumbing site, right?
Yeah.
A plumbing site, the reviews for the site itself could actually be super useful. The reviews maybe on the individual products, like an elbow, like a little plastic PVC elbow thing, not really that important.
Yeah.
Just know your audience and know how to leverage your audience to get more sales.
Cool. So we've got reviews.
Yeah.
We've got shipping.
Yeah.
What else is on our list?
So rewards, I mean, ultimately, I think there's this feeling with rewards where it's like, do I really need to do rewards? If you're interested in lifetime value, you need to be doing a reward system. If you want people to come back and buy from you on a regular basis, you need to do a reward system.
Yeah, and not everybody will take advantage of that system.
No.
But
the ones that do, which is ultimately who you're interested in.
Yeah, those are your most loyal customers,
right.
Obviously.
And you want your loyal customers to always, because look, loyal customers don't just drive a direct sale. Mm-hmm. Loyal customers become brand champions. They talk about the products. They show their friends the products. They go on Twitter and talk about the products. They go on Facebook and talk about the products. You need that natural push. And that's how you nurture the best customers.
Totally. And that's not necessarily something you can track, but it's a huge part of your business.
Yeah, totally. I mean, new customers are really hard to get.
Yeah.
But customers that are there, you want to extract as much value, and not just dollars. You want to extract value from them. Are they talking about my product? Are they promoting my product? Are they going to social to do that? So the ways that you drive that is by you give them some kind of incentive, and you incentivize them with a system like rewards.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's super valuable to any e-commerce brand.
And then, of course, the last thing, and I think really important, obviously being at Sendlane, messaging, right? So,
we're going to push messaging.
We're going to push messaging. But here's the thing.
But it is important, not just because
important.
we've got this, little envelope for Sendlane on the wall. It's easy. I mean, arguable enough, it's like the biggest part of your
100%
entire strategy.
So just email, and we can take Sendlane out of the equation. Just email. If you are doing everything right in your business, right? Holding everything true, you should be getting 20 to 30% of your revenue from email. The best brands on Shopify, on BigCommerce are doing exactly that. They are driving real LTV, a significant chunk of revenue by doing email right.
Yeah.
Right? And email's not the only channel of messaging. I mean, you look at a company like Octane AI, right? Where they're going to Facebook Messenger and utilizing that platform to do customer management and to get the right message about the right product to the right person at the right time, right?
Yep.
So there are many ways of doing messaging outside of email, but they're all super important, especially when it comes to retaining customers and bringing them back to buy again.
Yep. I mean, that's the only way I shop now as the consumer, is because I get all of these. I get it in texts. I get it in email. I see it in my Facebook Messenger. I have to admit, I'm not the biggest fan of the Facebook Messenger thing.
Yeah.
But it's still, it's there and it's in my face. And I think part of that too is knowing what channel is going to be best for your audience. Maybe it is multiple channels, but maybe it's not.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've got chat. That's another huge thing. And we talk a lot about chat bots. But I think when there's something new and shiny, what we always say on this podcast is that's great. Try everything. See what works.
Yeah.
But you have to have email. It is not going anywhere anytime soon. And if anything, it's getting more advanced.
Right.
Like we just had a company on the podcast a few weeks ago, Zembula, and they've created, these really cool interactive emails that are awesome. Like that's where things are going to be going. We're only going to find ways to make email better because it still works so well.
Yeah.
We might as well continue to evolve it.
Totally. So SMS is becoming more open, meaning that people are less weird about getting an SMS about something outside
Yeah.
of their friends or their family,
Like,
right?
I'm okay with it as long as it's a brand I actually like,
Right.
you know?
Which is ultimately what it comes down to is like if it's something you want, right? Uh, Facebook Messenger is kind of coming open, but why does email work? Well, it's very simple. You've been checking your email for the last 20 years. And whether you know it or not, you've become comfortable with the idea that in your email there are going to be messages that are not from your boss or from your family or from your aunt,
Yeah.
right? You've become comfortable with the idea, your expectations have been set. Now, here's the thing. Even with an email, now that I have this expectation that I'm going to get a bunch of stuff in my email that don't necessarily isn't personally connected to me, might be connected to me via a product.
Yeah.
If I'm sending messages that people want, that's why email works well, because their expectation is already set that this place that I usually go on a daily basis is going to have information provided to me that isn't from my friends or family.
Yeah,
Right?
totally.
And that's why email works, because it's ubiquitous. It's already it's kind of, what's interesting? So, the little save button that you see on any system, what is it usually?
The little save button? What do
Yeah,
you mean? Just like a generic.
yeah, like a generic save button. What is it usually? It's a disk, right? It's the shape of a disk.
Oh, I get what you're
right?
saying. Okay.
And everyone knows that if you see an icon, right, a glyph that is in the shape of
Yeah,
a disk,
yeah.
it means save, right?
Or you've still got the little
Yeah.
floppy disk.
The little floppy disk.
Yeah,
Even
okay.
kids today know that the little floppy disk means save, right?
Even though they don't know what a floppy disk
They
is.
don't know what a floppy disk is,
Yeah.
but they know that means save because it has become part of the ether. It's become ubiquitous. Everyone knows what it is.
Yeah.
And ultimately that's where email sits too. Is that everyone knows what it is. The expectations are already set.
Yep.
Right. So understanding these. So if you are a merchant, you need to kind of think critically and think about yourself as a consumer. Everyone is a consumer, including the merchants, right?
Yep.
So you need to think about me as a consumer and take your own personal kind of desires out of it. Just think very kind of high level as a consumer. What are those expectations so that you can kind of utilize that for what you want to do in your store,
Yeah.
right?
And that's how you choose the tools that are best for you. And going back to what you said about Zappos, I love that example because they really focused in on the return aspect.
Right.
So I'm sure that they have it's Zappos, but that meant that they had to go find this platform that was going to just do returns in the most killer way possible.
Right.
That would keep their clients satisfied.
Right.
So I think that's
I mean-
super, like for us, for example, here at Sendlane, we were just talking about, support's really important.
Right.
So for us, we need a chat platform that's going to work really well.
Right.
That is so important to us. So, it just goes to show you, we have this awesome chat platform. It's so fast. It works really well, but we have made a switch.
Right,
I
we
won't
did.
mention any names.
Right.
But, even here, we're a SaaS platform looking for other SaaS platforms
Correct.
for our own business.
Right.
And we have made our own switches because there are certain things that become a priority later on in the business that we recognize something we're using is lacking.
Right. Which is actually a really interesting point. You could go to one direction where you say, okay, I'm going to get the best thing ever. It's the #1 reviewed on G2 Crowd. It's got every bell and whistle, but I'm only going to use 10% of it. Okay, well, what have you done there? One, you haven't actually implemented the best solution because you're paying, let's say $10,000, whatever it might be, $10,000 more than you should.
Yeah.
Right. Secondly, yes, you have the best solution, but you're not getting much out of it because one, you're overspending. And the results are going to be the same if you chose the solution that would have best fit your needs first. That's,
Totally.
I think, the ultimate takeaway here is look for systems that fit your needs.
Yeah.
Because if they don't, you're going to overpay. You're going to be burdened by managing the system itself. That it's not just the cost of the particular product. It could be the human element too, right?
Yeah.
You might have to hire someone to manage it.
Yeah.
So you need to kind of be thinking about those things as well. What is it? How does it fit in my business? And does it address everything I need? And do I have to spend too much time, like a certain amount of time handling it?
Yeah.
So
And I
fit
think
is super important.
I think lastly, an important piece to mention too is just the whole process of switching to another tool,
Mhm.
if that is the place that you're at where you're, going from one to another, is I think it probably feels a little overwhelming, I'm sure, to a lot of merchants to even consider going to another tool because they have, so much data, so much customer information in one platform. So I lastly wanted to touch on, making sure if you are making a switch from one to the other, making sure there's a really seamless way to migrate all your data
Yeah.
from one to the other because it doesn't really have to be a headache switching
No, it
tools
doesn't.
as long as they have, those proper migration pieces in place.
Right. So internally, what we do here at Sendlane is we notice that as a friction point. Switching platforms is difficult. So we've built it into our service to say, okay, if you're coming in at the right level, we're going to provide that for you. We're going to kind of
Yeah,
help. We're going to remove that friction point from you.
totally.
And most platforms, most SaaS platforms realize that the switch is an important piece to address. So if you're looking for a SaaS platform, say for rewards, they're going to be able to say, okay, well, we're going to be able to pull in, hey, I know you're coming from X rewards and you're coming to smile.io. You have all these points and all these kind of related data for the customers that already exist. They're going to be able to pull that over.
Yeah,
right?
they want your business.
They want your
And
business.
that is something, if you are going to be signing up with someone for a larger account, especially, that is something to ask
Totally.
for. I don't think it's out of the question because they want your business and they want to do it well. And that is going to be a huge friction point for you.
Yeah, I want to touch on what you just said, which is, I think, super important when it comes to SaaS platforms and what we're doing in e-commerce. We want to do it well.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to do it well because, again, software as a service, right? You pay monthly, yearly. If we don't do it well, you leave.
Yeah.
So just be keyed in on that it's not the normal sales process because the sales never ends. In
Yeah.
SaaS, you're always being sold. You're either being sold, at the beginning or you're being sold as you're
We're
utilizing
trying
the
to
platform.
retain you as a customer.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we want to do it right. And that's something that's really interesting in SaaS sales versus some other kinds of sales is that ultimately it's not about selling a ketchup popsicle to a
Yeah.
woman in white gloves, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's not. What it's about is finding the woman that wants a ketchup popsicle and selling her the ketchup popsicle.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally. Yeah.
So
I love that. So before we kind of wrap up our episode, what is kind of the one takeaway that you want e-commerce brands listening, that you want merchants to walk away with from this episode and
Totally.
apply to their business?
I think it's be open and think critically.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are things that you might think you're doing just okay. And the reality is you're missing out on a lot of money.
Yep.
I have a corporate site that's 20 years old. Well, hey, I got $3 million in sales every year. Right now you do, but you could have 10 million if you just would revamp your site.
Totally.
So think critically and be open because ultimately these technologies are meant to further enhance your ability. So if you approach it kind of in this stodgy way of like, hey, I'm setting my ways of doing things, you're going to miss out.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, thank you, Amir.
Thank you for
coming
having
on.
me.
I feel like this was a really good
I feel like
episode.
we could keep on talking.
Yeah, we could keep on talking, but we're at 42 minutes right
So
now.
we're probably good.
So, we won't make you guys hang out any longer. And truthfully, if you've stayed with us this whole time,
Thank you.
awesome. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, me and Amir work together every day. So I
Yeah.
think that that's really obvious in this episode. It's really obvious when you get somebody in here where it's like you just really jive on the topic.
Totally.
So yeah, this was awesome. We'll
Thank you.
definitely have you back in here to talk about something else.
I would love it.
Because Amir can just keep talking and
I
I'll just
love to
keep
talk.
listening and I'm into it.
I love it.
So thank you, Amir.
Thank you.
I'll see you outside the studio shortly.
Yep.
So for all our listeners, I hope you really enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please be sure to show us some love. Give us a like, follow us, subscribe, leave us a comment, whatever that action is. We really appreciate the support. And again, I want to remind you guys one last time, I mentioned it at the beginning of the episode about eCom Email Academy. If you're an e-commerce marketer, this is definitely a course worth looking at. The website you can check out is ecomemailacademy.com/podcast. And we've got everything laid out on there. You can see module for module exactly what you're going to learn. So at least go visit the site if it's something that you might be interested in, so you can really understand what you're going to be learning and the value that's in that course. Again, that's ecomemailacademy.com/podcast. And of course, if you want to get started with Sendlane, you can grab a free 14-day trial, no credit card required, at sendlane.com. So thank you so much for joining us, and we will catch you next time on the Marketing Automation Hustle.